No, let it be. I think people are joining in, so.
Okay. We are live.
Okay, we start. Hello and welcome and good evening on this first day of the week, Monday evening. Thanks for joining us. I have a special guest with me today, the CEO of Times Television Network, MK Anand, who's not just running a business, a television media business, but also recovering himself. MK, I got to know only today that you tested positive for COVID. So wish you speedy recovery and thanks for joining us. I'm told MK is still in the hospital and thankfully he gets discharged tomorrow. But thanks for doing this for us.
Yeah, thanks, Naval, for having me over. And yeah, COVID has been a good experience.
So as many of you know, MK does not need any introduction. MK runs one of India's leading television networks, the Times Television Network, which is a combination of news and entertainment television channels. MK, as some of you know, has almost 3 decades of experience in the media and entertainment sector. He's a Times Group stalwart, and his combined experience of working with the group spans over 24 years. So you can imagine, the kind of stints he's had in BCCL, starting from print, digital, broadcast. He's done it all. He's seen it all. Under his leadership, Times Network has been steadily expanding its portfolio and business. On the print side, as some of you might know, Anand built the Times classified products in the 90s and later was instrumental in devising the Maximizer, which became the centerpiece of Times Group's ad strategy in 2002 for over a decade. Post that, he joined UTV Global Broadcasting as the CEO and turned around their TV business. Following the Disney TV buyout of UTV, he became the managing director of the merged entity and ran the company for a few years before Anand took charge of Times Network as MD and CEO in February of 2014. And since then, the network has seen spectacular growth in all areas. The channels they run are Times Now, which has been a market leader for a good part of a decade. ET Now, Movies Now, Comedy Now have risen the charts. Welcome, MK. Good to have you on the show. How's the recovery going?
Very good, Naval. Thank you very much. It was a really long biodata reading. Thanks for jogging my memory. It's been really long. Yeah, and I've put 25 years with the group. Actually, more than 25. And it's been great. Corona, I've been in here in the hospital for the last 10 days. And the initial 3-4 days was, the average normal fever with a little dry cough and, chills, little bit of, and very, very characteristic ache in the foot. So this is what I think it was. And fortunately for me, after the first, 3 or 4 days, those symptoms went off. Apparently, the symptoms completely go off in 5 days. It's a normal fever if you don't have other complications. In certain people, and it is not the virus, it is your body whose reaction to the virus is actually the differentiator. In certain people, apparently, it triggers something called the cytokine storm,
right,
which is a body autoimmune response, which starts getting evident apparently. And nowadays, because we've already put in 6-8 months, hospitals are really, really well equipped. These guys here, Fortis Mulund is, I think, one of the best. So they started checking blood markers to see whether I will go into a cytokine storm. And the cytokine storm is that day 8 to day 12 when you apparently, can have some sort of, immune reaction which can hit your lung and heart or vital organs. In my case, fortunately, there were no markers showing that. If it did, then they apparently are able to manage that with steroids, etc. My wife is actually in the next room. She had a little bit of up and down on the markers, so they immediately put her on that. So she's also out of danger. And these 12 days is 12 days the critical day. After that, I think they keep me. I think I'll be out tomorrow or day after. And after that, they've asked me to be at home for 5 days for protective quarantine for others. And after that, I'm out. I'm as good as vaccinated now.
That's glad to know. Glad to know you recovered well. Let me ask you about the other recovery. How is business recovering from Corona?
Business actually, our business has done quite well compared to the normal, uh, the numbers that I'm hearing about various other companies. And I think in the news business, the other news channels, my other NBA members, etc., I think even they've not been so badly off vis-a-vis last year. So we have fortunately been within a single-digit variation vis-a-vis last year in the first half. So we're going to be closing September now in the next 15 days. And we're looking like we'll be not more than 8 to 9% lower than last year. And this is, mind you, including election revenues, which we had last year. So if election revenues were not there, then probably we would have been equal to or minor more than last year.
That's
But
right.
that I think is not really representative of the industry. From an industry point of view, I think, and that's, we also had that very bad hit during April, May, and up to June. I think when I'm speaking for the industry, television and advertising per se, I think we can say that September probably is the first month in which there is some signs of things being not as broken as they were even up to August. I wouldn't say that there is, quarter two has been a recovery from an advertising or from a business point of view for the entire industry. Again, I'm keeping news out.
Yes.
We've had the benefit of news. So I think, and I'm also talking from the group's point of view, as in our radio business, our print business, our movie business, our digital business. Overall, I think September there is a recovery beginning, which we can see. And if current indications are going to hold, then I hope quarter three we might be getting to a place where we are not broken anymore. From a very positive, optimistic point of view, we all started the year with, at least I started the year with, I want to be equal to last year in quarter four,
That's right.
which some of us probably will be able to get to. But I think full recovery of this business into a pre-COVID era, in my opinion, will take at least next year festival.
But I think it's a good message of hope that things are getting back on track. 8 to 9%, being 8-9% down from last year's number is not a bad achievement at all, given that, if you compare like-to-like growth, then you're doing okay. If you take out
That's
the
true,
election part.
but Naval,
And
we are a little, as I said, we have been a little lucky. One is we have a large news portfolio in us, and news has been quite active, not just from a viewership point of view, not just from a drama point of view, but also from the point of view of a lot of banks, etc., have been wanting to participate in
yes,
branded content and content integrated activities, which we've been, pursuing a lot of initiatives. You might have also seen your so-called web-based seminars and content presentations have been, I think, quite successful. And so with us, because I mean, after all, TV is another form of that.
that's right.
Besides that, we've also pivoted quite sharply and successfully in the last 3 to 4 years into subscription and content as a direct revenue source than as a secondary revenue source through ad sales. And that's something that strategically we had decided back in 2015-16 when we went on a very aggressive subs development from a brand point of view to build that as a case. And for us, NTO was a good watershed moment, and where the consumer suddenly got some kind of a power to decide what goes into the 250 or 300 rupees that he spends. And we fortunately found ourselves being picked up quite popularly, quite frequently. And we've been able to build a decent subscription business. And we also would like to state here that at least we believe and we think that is the feedback that we are getting from the intermediaries, which is the MSOs and the DTH operators, etc. We are seen as a must-take option even by the intermediaries
Right.
to make the base bouquets look attractive. Times Networks, English movie and English news channels are seen as a must-take. So overall, all that put together, NTO, post NTO, we have been, we've been able to further that part. So subscription is a important part of our revenue. It was already last year, and this year it has sort of held us at a time when ad sales has been generally, sort of collapsing like nine pins around us. Subscription has helped us. And of course, as I said, news has helped us. In our English entertainment and Zoom businesses, of course, ad sales has been as bad as, it has been. I think we've been the worst hit category even compared to other categories. So that we are nursing them back to, standing up on their feet as of right now. And we are still working on that.
That's good to know. I think the message I get is that worse is behind us, and depending upon how various broadcast companies play their cards, we should be able to get back into the growth zone next year onwards. Let me pick you up on one of the key things that has happened in the broadcast industry in the last few years, MK. And I'd prefer not to go chronologically. Let me pick up on one important aspect that has changed the broadcast industry and also helped you in many ways, which is the implementation of NTO. When the original NTO paper came out 5 years back, some broadcasters were against NTO, and there were a lot of misgivings about that. Even last year, when it was implemented, it was a 6 month very big mess for the industry. But eventually, what we've seen happening is a lot of broadcasters have seen subscription revenues go up, which is a good thing because eventually, if you can go and, get consumers to pay for content, your dependence on advertising is lesser. Content revenue is direct content revenue, as you called it, is more predictable. It does not change with the vagaries of economic growth necessarily all the time. So, what is your take on NTO now with hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight? One more than a year behind us, 1.5 years. What is your take on NTO, and what do you think of NTO 2? Because the government, the regulator, is also pushing for implementation of NTO 2.
I think, personally, conceptually, philosophically, I'm against NTO or any such, tariff order. Consumer and business have a commercial relationship, have a competitive commercial relationship with, I think, over 900 channels and so many players. There is enough competition for prices to be controlled by the market. And there, I don't think, is a requirement for any regulator to come with a tariff order. We are still talking about a tariff order in this business after 30 years of liberalization and successive waves of liberalization. Unfortunately, this is an area which is still, and I don't want to touch upon the other two controversial areas where price is still controlled, which is drug as in medicines and fuel. Although fuel apparently is not. I mean, it is it's almost like controlled, but it is not. I think it's sad that after 30 years of liberalization, we still have some kind of a control or a tariff order for fixing prices of subscription. That is like saying that you will start putting a price on Coca-Cola, or start putting a price on soap, or start putting a price on any consumer product that you start availing. I mean, there is no price control on data, for instance. There is no price control on mobile phones. The same regulator is in that space. I think price control should be left to the market. So therefore, fundamentally, conceptually, I'm talking about, it is something that eventually should be not there. Having said that, I think the base thing that NTO, the so-called NTO 1 did last year when it came was that it came and disturbed a very, very long inertia system, which was, almost an unsaid norm of 250 rupees for television was there for the last 20 years. 20 years back, when you and I must have bought a shoe, and what we buy the same shoe now, or a car, or some of them have gone down, some of them have gone up, computer, gold, but 250 rupees has been 250 rupees. Now, for better or worse, this change led to, for the first time, a break in that equilibrium. And that break in the equilibrium, yes, of course, for the benefit of the customer, because the customer got the, got the power to decide what not to get, and at least know what I am paying for. And that way it is fantastic. Therefore, NTO is good. And that change led to some of the, and again, I'll talk to you from our point of view, and not just our point of view. Even if I was to look at it as a student of the situation, I think because there was a stable equilibrium, and because there were major players, who were anyway sort of having an ad-led model. And there was some kind of an old boys club there, wherein within that 250 rupees, somehow all the broadcasters, the big 4 or 5 broadcasters, had put their, what they wanted to take out of it and fixed it up. And there was only a little left there, and that was left for to be distributed amongst the other players who were not the so-called GEC players, who were the specialized broadcasters, and who also took it upon themselves that no, there is no scope of getting any subscription. We will have to do advertising. I mean, even an HBO, for instance, or a Disney, where I was earlier, which is internationally, these are non-ad-led players. They had to sort of do the ad model in India and sort of go with that.
That's right.
Now, the good thing is with NTO, whether it is Turner or us, or even, and of course, Disney became stars, so it's a different thing. But even if Disney was by itself, I think Disney would have made a better impact on itself. NTO would have been positive for it. So from that point of view, I think people started getting paid for what they were worth, which is good. And parity packages of these major 4 broadcasters, which actually look very, very similar from the GC's point of view, suddenly, and that is something that I calculated, because I thought that, if you are a person who was a Star home or a Colors home or a Sony home, the likelihood for you not taking the other 3, or at least not taking at least 2 of the other 3, is high, because you don't have multiple time bands in the, or ability to watch 3 channels at the same time. And therefore, the optimization I think that has happened is that people started dumping 1 or 2 of the 4 major, which money has got distributed amongst a few of us, which I think made it look a little more logical than it was. Having said that, and having, as I said, yes, we've had, and I wouldn't say that NTO gave us any bonanza. We've been working on the brand Times Now, the brands movies now, ET Now, etc., and Times Network. I mean, you remember we used to be called Times Television Network. We changed it. We've sort of done a lot of brand work over the last 4 or 5 years. So when we presented the Man Pack last year, saying that, here is something that the man of the house cannot do with, cannot do without, that made an impression. And that, 10 rupee pack that we put out there was value for money from the kind of channels that we were providing out there. And I'm very, very happy that we are one of the, I think we are probably the highest paid news bouquet. And that is, my real sort of achievement in this job here. Because I think, as long as news is going to be ad-led, you will have time spent dictate like it is dictating. And content has the potential to go a certain direction, which can be, overall in the long run, anti-society or social appreciation of reality or things that are happening around. And therefore, I think for us, it's a beginning. And I'm very happy that, at least in the Hindi space, while we were discussing this, you were saying that most news is FTA. I want to correct you there. I think India Today Group is not FTA. I think NDTV is not FTA. ABP has recently sort of moved back to pay. And I think the major broadcasters, if they all understand this as a first step, and then slowly start sort of, charging a little bit for the news channel that they are putting out there. And I'm 100% sure the news channels that we have, I'm not just talking about mine, I'm talking about the news channels that we have millions of viewers, and they're all very popular brands, all the brands that I talked about. And these popular brands, I'm 100% sure consumer will pay if they can pay for data, if they can pay for, and they can pay so much for their phone connection.
They are 100%.
Yeah. And that little money will grow into something substantial. And I want to be, facing a day when we would be able to have a news channel which has no ads, at least one channel amongst mine, which we should be able to say that, this channel is paid for by the viewers, and the journalists who are getting paid for are only responsible to the viewer, and not to, not to sort of making the viewership number look big. And because we are getting, the hand that feeds is the advertiser. With no disrespect meant to the advertiser, advertisers have financed, have sponsored this industry for the last 100+ years. Advertising is the reason that media has grown. But at a certain level, I think there is a need for us as industry providers, industry players, to understand subscription as a viable mode. I also think that the regulator needs to step in here. The government needs to step in. The ministry needs to step in to understand the importance of news and how, there is this talk now about this current story, which is, really broken all bounds and sort of run away, the
right.
SSR tragedy. That has sort of put, in fact, there have been some PILs, the court has heard it, and there have been statements out there that, news needs to be regulated, etc. I think, what needs to be done is that two things. I think one is you need to not regulate subscription. You need to make it easier for subscription revenue to be earned by news channels. At least at a regulation level, you should make it probably some kind of mandate needs to come that the industry should support the distributor industry should support, and the consumer should understand that they should pay something towards the news channels. That is one. And the second thing, I think, in the Western markets, if you see, news channels are not measured by TRPs, by TVTs. They are measured by reach. Time spent is not used in these markets, and that means that once you distribute a channel and your reach becomes the way you are, and of course brand scores, etc., or advertisers can have some other metric. If you are able to rid time spent as a metric from news, that also can lead to improvement in that space. So I think this reform is required. But before we sort of ask the world to change, I think it would be a good idea for us to change. We're trying to change, and we're very happy that we are successful in having a very solid subscription revenue base for our news channels. And I hope my competitors and other industry fellows also do that.
Since you touched upon a very valid topic as far as the content of news channels is concerned, and as I was mentioning to you earlier, news content is now a mainline topic. It is a drawing room topic for consumers, for audience to sit down and discuss. And we've seen over the last few, I remember 15, 20 years back, ghost stories run on news channels, and it used to be berated no end. After that, news has come a long way. We are doing serious content with gravitas. But what has also happened alongside, a lot of news content is today being accused of kind of pushing the boundary too much in terms of what should be acceptable to society, what kind of agenda is being run. You mentioned the SSR case. We've seen all sorts of coverage happening, PILs being filed. PILs, in fact, are being regularly filed in court now on around news content. What is your view on that? What is the view, for example, NBA also got together and created a self-regulatory mechanism on news content. The government has been working with the NBA. What is your view on news content? Does it require to be reined in?
No, I don't think news content requires to be reined in at all. I think, as I said, the revenue model is pitting you to be, creating content that gives you higher time spent. In that, as long as you are within the fact, within the boundary of fact, as long as you're not lying, as long as you're not peddling fake, as long as you're strictly within the fact limits, the limit of truth, your presentation style cannot be held against you. If somebody is dramatic, if somebody presents with a flourish, somebody screams, shouts, raves, rants, I don't think that can be held against that person, him or her. And I think anybody who is doing anything in a free consumer, free capitalist, consumer-oriented product market situation like news is doing it because the consumer wants it. It is easy for a few people to sit and say this is not what the consumer wants. If that is not what the consumer wants, then why is it that the rating agency is able to get is able to put weekly numbers which really reflect the fact? The fact is that it is appreciated, but as I said again, it has to be within the very hard boundary of fact. It has to be within the very hard boundary of truth. You cannot have lies, fake, or fiction be mixed into your truth to make it palatable, to make it more presentable. However, how you say that, what are you sort of, how you're gesticulating, what is the tone of your voice, that is entirely something that I think you should leave it to the consumer and the presenter and not be a judge of that at all.
Let me rewind a little, MK. As I mentioned at the start of the show, you took over the Times News Network in 2014, and the last 6-7 years for the broadcast industry have been monumental in many ways. I remember early part of the decade, the government embarked on their agenda of digitizing the sort of distribution industry. We shifted from TAM to BARC sometime in 2015-16, and that's the time when you were really getting into your groove. And TAM to BARC was a massive shift for the industry in the sense of expanding the people meters, Indianizing, kind of more Indianizing or Bharatizing, as we call it, content on TV, and that really changed the way television networks produced content and positioned content. One of the things that I asked you earlier also was that Times network was very well placed to kind of take advantage of this expansion of people meters and go out. Why didn't you do a Hindi television channel?
That's a natural expansion of my portfolio. I would say business priorities have actually been mainly dictating that. But I can tell you that the change from TAM to BARC, or when I came in 2014, we were just about getting ready. The industry was getting ready for that. BARC, TAM was representing, or at least covering, about 40% of India's geography and extrapolating it on the rest of India. I think they had in the range of around 10,000 or 12,000 boxes. And now we are operating with, I think, 40,000 plus boxes with BARC. And TAM used to be sort of only in 6 states with 0.1 to 1 lakh, and others were all 1 lakh plus towns. Whereas today you have bulk of the boxes are in rural, and which means that representation has gone so much more, which means that cable operators in all those zones become important from a measurement what is that called, a point of view, and therefore we need to be in those places, etc. We adapted to it way back in 2014-15. We went from, I think when I joined, we had 300 deals out there with MSOs and cable DTH operators. In 1.5 years, we went to 3,000. So now it is in that range, 3,000, 2.5 to 3,500, distributor deals happen. And that therefore is an expansion of our network into every little place that otherwise would not have been there. So from that point of view, I think, that the expansion of BARC led to the increase of television. If you see 2015 to 2020, do you know that the viewership of television in the same period, that apparently 2015 is also the first OTT coming in, which is the topic of the discussion that we have. The first OTT comes in 2015. Between that time and now, television viewership has gone up by some 63%. The television reach has gone up by 23%, and time spent has gone up by 33%. From 3 hours something, it's gone up to 4 hours something. And the reach has gone up fundamentally because a lot of players like us have continuously increased their distribution willfully to get to be seen where the new boxes are going. And therefore, I think it's been a fantastic move for everybody. And that has also sort of paid for in advertising, because there has been an almost 10-11% growth over the last 5 years CAGR in television advertising revenue. So I think it has been actually good for the television industry that BARC came with this mandate of going, increasing the number of boxes. Although statistically, personally, if you ask me, I go by what my good friend L.V. Krishnan says. I mean, his best example is that you don't need to take the whole blood to check a human being's blood. You need to just take a drop. That's right. From that point of view of the sample, I think number of boxes is not so very important as long as the way the sampling has been done. And therefore, of course, 44,000 boxes is definitely superior to 10,000 boxes. However, the sheer fact that it went rural has been a huge shot in the arm for television, but television, including us, we went rural at a time that I think if this had not happened and Times Now had not gone, or Movies Now had not gone to those places, today when digital came, we would have been, they would have just leapfrogged on our head. People wouldn't even have known that Times Now or Movies Now existed in, say, some small market in the outskirts of Udaipur, for instance. So I think BARC coming was very, very useful from that point of view. Indianization, Bharatization. Yes, I mean, does that do good for Indian languages? I think fantastic. I think not just Hindi. I think all Indian languages, the regional channels have sort of grown by leaps and bounds in the last 3-4 years. I want to sort of launch this one, but unfortunately, we have had our own share of, historic things to catch up. We wanted to sort of quickly get into the digital space. Then we have had our famous 2017 16, 17, which is, events beyond the black swan events that everybody else has, faced. And I think ASAP, and this year probably would have been the right year, but again, the biggest black swan came and sat on our necks, in February. So I think sooner than later, we will be sort of on that, in that space. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's good to hear. Let me ask you, I have two, three questions from this. So let me ask you the first one. It's a very relevant thing you mentioned about, how the transition from TAM to BART happened and the expansion of people meters, the boxes, especially into areas which were not on the broadcaster's radar earlier, helped growth of television in the last 6, 7 years. What is the next big event, or say, if the TV industry were to similarly grow in the next 6, 7 years? What would be required? Does it require BARC to now expand people meters from 44,000 to a lakh, which they plan to anyway? What are the other events that can fuel the growth of the industry? Keeping in mind now OTT is much stronger than it was, digital is much stronger than it was in 2015.
I think the fundamental drive is now going to come from the production technology changes, from the process changes that has already happened willy-nilly without all of us realizing in the last 6 months. I don't think going from 44,000 boxes to 1 lakh boxes is going to be of great significance, because that's only going to improve the calculations and it'll improve the smallest TG measurement, but it won't sort of at a fundamental level improve television distribution, because I think that is more or less already done. I think with NTO1, there was a 3% drop in reach when the market adjusted, but because of lockdown, we have another 16% growth in overall viewership, and therefore I think that is a peak. In my opinion, I think next year we might see a little decline once the lockdown is not there. People are going to be out, etc. So I don't think television viewership is going to continue to increase in the next 5 years as it has in the last 5 years. Yes, it will increase at the natural pace of growth in number of households in the country, because we are still a growing population. Other than that, I don't think there is going to be growth coming from any such measurement universe related thing. I think the big growth is going to come from certain paradigm shifts that have happened in production technology, in collaboration technology, in working processes, in work processes which have happened during COVID when pushed to the wall. I think that is going to fundamentally improve the economics of this industry, and the money that is going to get saved, I think, is going to get invested into better content, more channels. And I think it is also going to be timely that digital technology of distribution is going to sort of also help distributing more number of channels by all of us broadcasters, and thereby improve the variety of the portfolios that we are able to sort of put out there. I think that is going to be the first kicker that I'm expecting in the next 1.5, 2 years. When you look at the data on India and compare it to the globe, I think we are about 4 or 5 years behind in terms of the digital to television, situation with reference to mainline media and so-called new media. I think in 2023 also, according to the PwC report, we are not going to be where your Western market, global markets have been in 2017. So we may be even 5 to 6 years behind them. So I think television is going to continue to be the trunk medium in the foreseeable future. I think and therefore we need to look at it more as a able to pick up the benefits of digital and not really get scotched by digital over the next 3 years. And therefore, in my opinion, the margin that we are now able to free out because of this improvement in our processes, I think is going to become a very solid kitty in the next 2 years.
Is it going to put significant money on the table?
I think so.
So give us an example. What kind of work process improvement are you talking about, and what kind of saving does it bring?
I think first and foremost, technology adoption. Technology already existed. I don't think any new technology has suddenly happened overnight. I mean, that's not happened. I think everything, like for instance, you and I are currently sitting and talking on a software that we were not fully conversant even 6 months back. Some of us may have used it, but all of us were not using it. I mean, today, the average, the lowest common denominator in office is able to sort of, I think collaboration technologies like Microsoft Teams or Zoom are now becoming as easy to handle and ubiquitous as the email or WhatsApp. That is a fundamental change. That is a fundamental change. Second is this whole, freeing people from traveling and working from home. I think that's a cultural change. I think a lot of us were held back, not because this was not possible, but because of the inertia of managers carrying. I wanted to do this 2 years back, 1.5 years back. In fact, my idea was to, by 2021, to have 30% of my workforce working from home. This is back 2 years, 1.5 years back. In fact, I started it in Delhi with my digital team. 45 people were sent home and they started working from there, and their productivity, in fact, went up. But when we actually went into this work from home in March, when I actually checked with the HR team and I said that digital in Delhi must have fully adopted, he said, no, sir. After that experiment, we had called them back because we didn't know that it was supposed to be permanent. So that is the mind state of people. So I think that mind state change is what is putting serious amount of efficiency. And I can only tell you this much: that I'm seeing the last 6 months, the PNL has been able to let go of the clutches of around 8 to 10% of last year's base cost without compromising on quality of output. I can't say for others, but I can tell you my best example is ET Now, which is a very busy channel, which is a channel which is continuously watched, which actually cannot go wrong. It cannot sort of go down because there are people who sort of put money on what we are saying. You will not believe that when I tell you this, that we operate with about 5 to 6 people in office now, and the entire team is at home. Everybody, including the anchors, the entire production, other than those 5 people who are in office looking at the basic, master control, everybody else is in office, is at home. And slowly but steadily, like for instance, day before yesterday, I saw an interesting statistic. Shawnil sent me. Said that 6 months back we were operating out of 2 centers. Today we are operating out of 37 centers across the country. People across the country, 37 centers across the country. We've already started. HR has already started now recruiting people in markets, in places like Patiala and Guwahati and Sholapur, with a view to having people working out of there, not having to come here. So that is the change that is happening, and that cost itself, I think, is significant. Obviously in the first year or even the next year, because, I don't think the worst is what we have seen is the worst yet. I think the worst is going to be when this whole thing is over and then people take stock, and a lot of business, I think, will close down. There was going to be, banks coming to terms with bad loans, etc. I think next year, therefore, is going to be as bad. So probably this year and next year, these savings will probably contribute to the PNL. But going forward, I think that free resources is going to be a significant input on content development at a time that the digital, appetite, the OTT appetite is really opening up, because people are also having a lot of time, and the kind of content that I'm seeing now is definitely more than and more varied than what I was seeing 6 months back or a year back or 2 years back. I think there is, that's the other thing, that technology adoption also leads to technology adoption in terms of camera types, lighting types, editing software, presentation software, etc. That is also improving substantially, and all that is going to actually probably give. I have a very simple belief, and I've been successful till now. I have since 1990s, since 95, 97 actually, I'm dabbling with digital because I handle classifieds, and classifieds was the first product which was hit by digital. So 97 onwards, I'm handling digital. That's the reason on my resume I say I've been handling digital also, because the first time classifieds.com was designed by me. I handled Digital Trend 1990, 2000, I think 2001. I have always seen that digital has only given equal to or more than what it takes away to the mainline business. I think, I think digital, yes, it takes away consumers, it takes away advertisers, it takes away XYZ. But, if you only look at that, and it's like looking at the glass half full, you should look at what digital gives you. Digital is improving your productivity, your creativity, your presentation, your cost, your distribution, your marketing ability so substantially that if you were to not focus on that and only focus on what digital is taking away, then you're going to be a loser. So I think the least that you can have is a zero-sum game. And if you're smart, you can have a positive game purely by surfing on digital, even
But
when you're sitting in an old media brand.
let me ask you, is it a zero-sum game for legacy media brands? Because what has happened in the last 5 years, you have two parts to your business, the entertainment channels and the news channels. Entertainment channels, especially the English one, a lot of audience has shifted to, watching content on OTTs, digital content, and, the global OTTs and Indian OTTs and so on and so forth, because of the television channels have had it not easy, so to say. Viewership has kind of stagnated, in many cases fallen. NTO kind of gave it another push downwards, right? The other part is that when it comes to news, the sources of news have really proliferated and fragmented, right? It is just humongous, the number of sources from which one is getting news. Accepted that in India, the time spent on TV is still lesser when you compare it with some of the Western, more evolved markets. Hence, there is headroom for growth. But the fact remains that digital is taking the consumer's attention and time away, which is eventually going to benefit, the big guys, the Googles and Facebooks of the world, who are able to consolidate and bring on table, millions of audience, whereas, smaller plays kind of, get left behind. So is it a zero sum game? How do you benefit, on the balance from digital? Because, as we've seen in print, the media industry is swimming against the tide when it comes to digital.
So I think when I mean digital, I mean the entire thing. Digital includes email to me. Digital includes this phone to me. Digital
Digital
includes computer.
transformation.
Digital for me is
Digital
computers.
transformation of the
It
business.
is technology aided digital transformation. That is point number one. So I think I'm not talking about there are no big players. There are only two players. So I'm not talking about this duopoly that we are talking about. I'm talking about overall, and I genuinely have seen that it has not been a zero-sum game. It has been a positive game for me right from the beginning, because I think digital allows higher distribution, more distribution, cheaper distribution. Yes, digital distribution is unprotected distribution, to the extent that while we would like to be within walled gardens so that we can always have a ticket to it, digital distribution makes your content go beyond that wall and then sort of spread all over the place, and therefore get picked up by anybody and everybody. That's up to you how you're going to be sort of monetizing that, or converting that to value, whether it is by brand. Like for instance, we have an 8.5 million Twitter base on Times Now. Now, is that good or bad? I mean, content which is going on to those 8.5 million handles out there, people who are sort of looking at Times Now from there, is not giving me any money. But is that improving something for me? Yes. Now, how do I do it? That is where I need to bring in intelligence. That how do I marry that medium and convert that into becoming a feedback mechanism for me from a brand point of view, into creating more stickiness on my content and make the content more conversational and more spoken about. I mean, if news hour topic gets discussed on water coolers and in the Parliament House, it is also not just because of the news hour at 9 o'clock. It is also because it is getting amplified across social media, across so many places. So we need to be able to sort of cut those right channels. So we need to be able to have the right kind of creative jockeying of marketing plus distribution plus content to use these new mechanisms as they happen.
Fair enough. Let me come back to another issue you mentioned when we spoke about the transition from TAM to BARC, and BARC's expansion of boxes, people, meters, really given a very big fillip to the broadcast industry. There was a recent diktat from BARC about the landing pages issue, and that's again been a kind of a simmering thing for the last few years. News, as other domains in television, is a very competitive vertical, and there are players who have invested significantly in landing pages. What is your view on the topic? How do you see business cycles?
So I lost your signal a little bit. I hope my signal is good. Just sort of give me a thumbs up if
Yeah,
my
we can
signal
hear
is
you.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So I think
good, thanks.
landing pages and the current order or current step by BARC 2 weeks back is hostile, I would say. With all due respect, we are one of the founders founding supporters of Bark when we moved from TAM to Bark, and we continue to sort of support Bark. Bark is headed by an ex-Times Network CEO, and we respect Bark's processes. And I have sort of, in private and public, always sort of been a very staunch supporter of the statistical veracity and solidness of the processes of Bark. And therefore, I was a little surprised when unilaterally they have moved to sort of come up with this, one diktat that we will remove landing page influence. Now, let me sort of jog memory of everybody on this group here and you, to a few years back. Under severe competition in 2016-17, there was a lot of distribution level ground, moves which were undertaken by the competition. And we, of course, being a group which is, a very, very long legacy and brand, and also a legacy of never playing below the table or under the belt practices, have been at the forefront of, being absolutely following kosher distribution practices. Now, in that situation, we saw that one of the competitors had time and again resorted to underhand tactics, which were, actually coloring the data at that time. And you're aware of it. This is May 17 onwards. And and that was obviously tactics that we could not symmetrically replicate, because that involved doing things that we would not do. At that time, we came up with this perfectly legal and kosher, above the table practice of using landing pages as a mechanism to promote our channels. Now, a landing page is like the front page of a newspaper. Of course, the front page of a newspaper is very expensive, but it cannot be said that, oh, you have all the money, so you're putting your full page front page ad, nobody else's ads get seen, so it is against competition. Now, that kind of a argument has been put forth by some players who obviously do not want to spend the kind of money that they want to. We are very clear, whether it is content or marketing or distribution, we believe that the proverbial kheer will be only as sweet as the kind of things that you put into the kheer. So we did not want to sort of come short on that. And we are also confident that whatever we put into it, if we are able to come up with the right audience, we will be able to sort of get that and make a margin on that. And therefore, we don't see any reason why a perfectly commercial business practice of improving your offtake, like you have a supermarket shelf, you have Colgate versus Pepsodent, and Colgate pays for the front shelf to put something. Pepsodent cannot come and say that, okay, you're paying too much and my thing is not getting sold. He has to bid against it and displace them. So this was done by us, and we have had this going on for the longest period now, for the last 3 years. And my fundamental argument to that is, the reach that is coming out of landing pages is not spurious reach. Unlike the reach that comes out of panel tampering, because a panel tampering leads to reach, which is not real reach. It is only tampering that particular box that is getting measured. And therefore, it is to the advertiser a fraud, because the advertiser thinks he's getting, say, 2,000 or 4,000 TVTs, and the actual number would have been 1,500. Whereas in landing pages, if you're showing 4,000 TVTs, it is 4,000 TVTs. Now, as far as the advertiser is concerned, now you're Hindustan Lever, you're putting an ad, and the ad is appearing on a channel which is on a landing page. You are getting that reach. How does it matter? Now, if Bark is measuring what India watches for the sake of creating a metric for the Indian advertiser to buy, then Bark has no business to come in and say anything about the landing pages. That is point number one. Point number two, like I said, there have been certain philosophical, conceptual, leftist arguments that, oh, businesses that cannot afford, cannot sort of this one. And therefore, there have been some kind of, moves in the MIB and in TRAI, etc., to sort of talk about this landing page. This was challenged, and we actually had a case between us and TRAI, and TDSAT ruled in favor of that. And TRAI has now challenged us in Supreme Court, and as we speak, this matter is sub judice in Supreme Court. In the meanwhile, there is no business that these guys have here to suddenly sit and say that we have created this grand algorithm by which we are going to sort of take out take out the influence of spurious landing page influence. I want to know how it is spurious. And I want to know how is it that the advertiser who's getting a correct bona fide number of how much reach his channel is going to get affected. In a time where news itself is becoming entertainment and it's getting gobbled up by entertainment, this kind of mechanisms and this kind of motivated players like us are actually putting more money on the table to market news and make news bigger. Instead of lauding that, here is a player, here is a sort of central body, and I don't know who there comes up with this sudden grand scheme. So we are going to challenge that. We don't believe that is right. So we are sort of exploring our legal options in that.
So you are planning a legal recourse to this order?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it up. I completely had forgotten about it.
It's a recent development, and I know that it does impact the news television business significantly.
Yeah. No, because COVID had actually sort of blunted me a little bit, because in the initial 1 week, I was a little, working too much, and then the doctors told me sort of not to be on calls. So last 1 week, in fact, this is the first call after a long time that I'm putting on work. So I totally slipped my mind.
We are happy you're back fully in action. So let me also ask you a related question to this, MK. Carriage fee has been a big bane for the industry. How do these developments impact carriage fee? The landing page order, NTO is trying to push NTO2, where they've also put some base channels in the bouquet where so the cable operator earns from both sides. There is 165 rupees to be earned directly from free-to-air channels, and plus also take carriage fee from paid channels. How does it impact the carriage fee ecosystem? But because that really impacts the profitability and business viability of channels.
I think carriage fee, in fact, has been regularized. It has been properly officialized by the NTO, because carriage fee is bona fide charged by operators now. And to that extent, carriage fee being regulated there, just makes it clean and clear out there. Personally, again, if you ask me, in the same vein as my original conceptual thought about the market being the right arbitrator, I think there is nothing wrong in carriage fee. If it is bad business sense, then people shouldn't do it. If it is happening, I don't think you should blame the operator. It's a very fashionable thing I've seen in every broadcaster grouping. Everybody sits and says, people all sort of talk about carriage fee as some external monster created by a third party bunch of enemies. No, nobody would charge carriage fee unless these 5 people sitting in this room
were willing to pay.
Don't stop fighting to each other. So if they all decide that we don't want to fight with each other, you don't need to pay carriage fee, right? Like the best example is this DD Dish. DD Dish is a classic case right now. I mean, they charge a certain amount, and I think they're right in charging that amount. They probably should charge more for that. That amount is a new spending that all these people have got together and started paying, right? Now, if all the operators got together and said, we don't want to do it, and everybody stopped doing it, that much carriage fee could have been saved. It is carriage fee after all. Why don't they do it? So I think carriage fee is a healthy signal that the market is live and kicking, and the amount of carriage fee that is getting paid by broadcasters is a direct indicator of the money that they might be making by advertising. So I don't think there is anything wrong with carriage fee. And I think the market is today at a new equilibrium post NTO. I don't think, suddenly the carriage fee stream has dried up, because if I was a DTH operator or not a DTH operator, a cable operator, if suddenly one large stream dries up, I will have to sack people or sort of, cut down some costs. And none of them, most of them are listed. None of them are like making hand over fist money to that kind of an extent that, carriage fee is usurious. I think the market has found a new equilibrium.
Let me now, look at the future a little bit. You've kind of invested a lot in both digital transformation of your business and also make your company ready for digital advertising, putting content on digital platforms. A lot of media companies in India have put money on the table, but have not really seen returns coming from digital advertising. Digital transformation, as you explained, is one part of the business which all media companies have done, but digital advertising has not really paid back in the sense of how much money has been invested. What's your outlook on that? Because as we have seen, the digital advertising pie is growing very fast, but the share of that money is largely going into the two global players, and it continues to grow for them. Whereas the other players have seen, very minimal marginal growth. A lot of companies have scaled back plans for digital investments. So, what is your view? Where is the future headed? Because eventually, the fact remains that more and more consumers will continue to also adopt to digital while they continue to watch TV.
So this is a global problem. This is not a India specific problem. These two players, Google and Facebook, are a bane for advertising models across the world, and it's only going to get increase because I think globally, I think they are currently, both of them put together is about 20 to 25%. Let me see how much is it. Approximately, I think 22% by 26% in 2020, and going to 30% of the world advertising, and just these two players. In India, they are
Yes.
currently 14% going to 18%. It is shocking when I saw the kind of money that is getting spent by Group M into these two players, and it is shocking to see the kind of money that the same Group M spends or Group M spends come to the non-Google, non-Facebook brands of whether it is news or entertainment, etc. It's shocking, and that
Why
I
do you call
don't
it
think
shocking?
is. It is shocking, as in it is like 50 crore, 100 crore, and 2,000 crore, 3,000 crore. No, it's not even 1,000 crore, 3,000 crore,
Yeah.
or 500 crore, 3,000 crores. I'm talking about. So I think advertising beyond Google and Facebook, I can very safely say, does not exist at a scale that can support corporate, professional media the way it currently is structured. I'm making a very, very strong statement here. The kind of money that is going into advertising in digital to outside Facebook and Google cannot support corporate professional media, whether it is news or entertainment. So it is in news and entertainment and media businesses' interest to pivot out of ad model, one, which means go into subscription model, and pivot out of, in some manner, this stranglehold duopoly in terms of the distribution mechanism. So whether it is Disney trying to do Disney Plus, or any of these players emerging,
Well, I think
eventually,
globally, some news companies have done it. You've seen what New York Times has done, and India is perhaps not a equivalent example because the consumer here is not used to paying for news content as much. Entertainment content, a lot of companies have made a push. Consumers have little bit started paying. News, I think, has been very undervalued, and possibly, if dare I say, by news players themselves, who've not really
yeah.
gone out and extracted money. That's the only way. I mean, like we discussed earlier. I mean, there's no other
Yeah,
way.
that is true. But you have to look at the New York Times transformation model. New York Times has 1,700 journalists. It has more journalists than it ever had in its entire history. And
Right.
we don't plan our products, at least not right now. Our products, whether it is consumer products like newspapers or television channels, are optimized right now for viewership, for readership, which is an ad currency. So I think we have 3-4 years more, which is a luxury compared to the global market. We have 3-4 more years to go before we start staring into a steeper precipice. I think in that meanwhile, I would sort of urge my industry colleagues and my own colleagues, and what we are doing is to try and very quickly try to increase the depth of the content ability. But the problem is also, however, that each brand is known for a certain nuance or a certain type of content. Now, it needs to be seen how, for instance, a Times Now or a Mirror Now or an ET Now can be explored into the variety that, for instance, if you were a Times of India or a New York Times, are able to sort of command. Now,
Yes.
New York Times has the advantage of the word Times and the word New York, and both are global. And New York Times sitting there looks at the globe as its market and not New York City or even the US as its market. Now, I think that's what we need to do. We need to be able to sort of, deliver global products for a global audience and not, just sort of look at it and say that, I will provide you SSR content or I will provide you India local content just because I am Times Now. Now, obviously that requires your content process backend to be, completely different from what it is right now, completely different from what it is right now. And that is where I think, to me, the greatest opportunity that I'm seeing is this new work style that has happened. We have suddenly sort of, getting used to absolutely working without meeting the person for the last 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, as we go forward. And therefore, I don't see any reason why I cannot have contributors sitting in Lebanon or contributors sitting in, in Rio de Janeiro or in the US or in, Osaka. And that is the opportunity. And that, I think, is what we need to sort of, because ultimately we need to be able to, a brand becomes the thread around which, you're able to, arrange your, the pearls, and the pearls you need to now collect from across the globe, right, who are your content providers and your content panels. And I think journalism, not journalism, I think content management at the central level, brand level, will move, I think, to guest coordinating, contributor coordinating mechanisms enabled by technology, assisted by AI journalism, so that, new and varied experts start contributing, and you start speaking about varied stuff and genuinely differentiated content. I think New York Times is very easy to say. New York Times is like, everybody wants to become New York Times. You have to see the New York Times approach paper. That paper itself is some 550 pages. If you want, I'll send it to you. I've tried to read even the executive summary is some 46 pages. You understand? So there are two papers that they have done. One in 2016-17 and one recent. To even get into the executive summary is and that is after actually doing so much. It is not, you start today and become tomorrow. They've done it over 6 to 7 to 8 years now.
And I think
in the process,
I think news brands, if you want to monetize money on digital, you have to invest now and be ready in the next 3-4 years. Otherwise, as you said, the opportunity will be lost, and it's going to be very difficult, like it's happening across many other sectors of media. Unless you get consumer to value your content and get them to pay money, you will always be beholden to other interests. You will not be able to do the best quality of job that you want to do. And it is unsustainable for business eventually, over dependence on advertising. Well, thank you.
And there is a good move now, one more point, in Australia, which we are looking at quite keenly, that they have been sort of, there is legislation probably coming up where they're trying to sort of get the social media platforms to share cash with news providers. We hope that kind of thing happens. But yeah, I mean, we need to pivot on. I think first you need to change, then only you can expect the world to change.
Is the NDA planning to lobby the government on that, to get the government to bring in a law?
I don't think this, it's a, maybe. I don't think we are yet there. I don't think we are yet there. Let us see what happens in Australia. And as I said, it is not yet a mature market. I think we are at least 5 to 6 years behind. And even at the pace of technological catch-up, that 5 to 6 years might translate to 3 years. So in the next 3 years, we should be able to, if we don't sort of, intelligent people like us are not able to sort of come up with a solution to this, then we don't deserve to be. And I'm pretty sure, at least I can talk for Times Now as a brand is 15 years old. I guarantee you it will be alive and kicking and as vibrant in 15 years, definitely. And I hope I will be able to say the same thing about my sister brand, which is 180 years old, 182. And I'm sure they will also have plans to be there for the next 182
I think one thing has become clear during COVID. People are gravitating more towards credible brands because, there was so much misinformation being spread through WhatsApp and other social media channels that the only news or piece of content you would trust or believe in was that came from a credible brand. And I think that's opened a vista of opportunity for established brands to kind of take advantage of.
I think, as I said in the beginning, you be within fact, within truth, and rest will take care of itself. Therefore, in fact, during COVID, we started this whole thing called fighting fear with facts. I mean, our lead campaign during this period is fighting fear with fact. And I hope we'll sort of continue that as a position for the network as a whole. So fact and credibility is what is going to be, our only parachute as we are violently going to be thrown out of this, flying plane now. And I think it'll hold us in good stead. I mean, all that we need to do is to sort of learn how to maneuver in this, and we probably will land up in an even better place than we were earlier. That's what I think.
Fantastic. Before I pick up audience questions, we are already over time. Let me ask you one last question. You spent, as I said at the beginning, 24 years in the industry. I'm not going to ask you what happens in the next
30 years and 25 years in times.
Yes.
30
oh,
years
yes,
in the
25
industry.
years. Yeah, 30 years in total, 25 in times. I'm not going to ask you next 30-year outlook because technology is changing too fast. But let's look at the next 10 years for the broadcast industry. We are sitting in 2020, 2030. What do you think will be the shape of broadcast industry?
I think broadcast industry would have melded and fused with the digital OTT, because I think digital. I mean, television is already digital because the content was already digital. It is you shoot it and you store it and it plays out. The only difference between television as we know it right now and new will be the fact that right now it is linear, one-way, unilateral. In the future, it's going to be non-linear, two-way communication. So the moment two-way communication starts happening with better bandwidth, and that will happen, it's a matter of next 3 years, this way or that way, we will go 5G. Once 5G happens, I think you will have two-way talking television, and TV will meld and fuse with OTT. I think, when I look at Times Now, for instance, of the future, I think I will have the option of 5 or 6 different breaking news at any point of time.
Yeah.
And I will have also different states news playing out. And on the same topic, if I want the connected news, and then when you look at the page, it actually is what is Netflix right now. So I think all channels, each single major mega brand will become an OTT with its own repository, with its own linear and non-linear. And I think that's the product mechanism. I think it's going to become a much larger industry, a much larger industry than it is right now, because I mean, that's the way media has been globally. And I think India is very small, in terms of both subscription and advertising. Even that correction to get to even a China level in terms of the per capita, you will look at this industry going up by 10 to 15 times,
right.
I think in the
there's a lot of headroom.
next 10 years. Yeah, huge headroom, humongous headroom.
And growth will come.
But
there's
I
a
think
lot of pessimism
people
right now in the industry, in the economy, general society overall. But I think it's a matter, the worst is behind us. Next 2 quarters, growth will come back, jobs will come back, employment will start picking up again.
I think so. It's like saying that will you buy stocks in 2020 and what do you expect for those stocks to be in 2030? It is a blind man's guess. Unless the economy folds up and sort of India becomes, the Indian Ocean, whatever stock that you pick in India in 2020 will be at least 3 to 4 times in 2030, whatever. I guarantee you that. Similarly, media, I think, will do even better at an overall level. At a stock level, media, I cannot say that.
Fantastic. That's a very optimistic note to end your remarks, MK. Before we go, I'd like to pick up a couple of audience questions. We don't have much time, but I'll pick up 2 of them. There's a question which says, you spoke about distribution and going to rural areas. How does this impact carriage fee? You partly answered this, but does going to larger areas also significantly increase carriage fee?
Yes. The first impact in 2015, when we decided to go, distributing to markets that we were not distributing, was to spend more. Simple. The company was not spending earlier because it was conserving the funds. The moment we realized that we have no choice, we started spending. But what I'm trying to say is that spending, however, was not a waste. It increased the brand, it increased the footprint, and eventually we were able to monetize higher. Yes, it starts with increasing carriage spend. Distribution is spending, whether it is carriage, you want to make toothpaste and sell tomorrow, you will have to put a van out there, right? It is spending. You'll have to spend.
Okay, next question. This is about content cost on English entertainment channels. Since NTO has impacted the English entertainment space significantly, as content cost, especially movie costs, started coming down?
There have been some instances. In fact, movies have been the biggest impacted category in the NTO 1. Unfortunately, other than us and probably HBO, both of us had small sized packs. I mean, Turner pack was 10 rupees and Times pack was also 13 rupees, and the smaller pack was 10 rupees. And these two packs were sold right in the first week, first month, etc. However, in the case of Star, Sony, and Z, which were the other three players who had English movies, their priority was to sell their base pack, which was to sell the 49 rupee pack first and then sell the 79 rupee pack. And the English movies were in the second tier. Because of which, in the initial phase, there was a significant drop in reach of the overall genre. So while Times channels and HBO did not lose reach more than 25 to 30 to maybe 35%, the Star, Sony, and Z channels lost reach by almost 70 to 80% in the initial phase. That led to almost a sort of a kind of a some kind of a drug shock to those people. So for about 6 months, I think there was no. I think the whole category lost steam in terms of advertising, right, which led to some of these players probably stopping to renew, and maybe the conversations back to the vendors were quite pessimistic till now. I think things would have improved by now had it not been for COVID, because COVID led to another bunch of problems in the first quarter. So I mean, if I was a vendor, bad time for me. As a buyer, it has given us much needed relief, because I think all of us had outbid each other and taken the price up by 2.5 times, I think, compared to what I found it when I joined here. The price, the total spend had almost gone up 3 to 4 times during that phase. And I think it's come down by about at least 30%, which is welcome. And I think it's more feasible. Probably some more correction required, but hopefully the business is looking better now, or will look better. As of right now, to be honest with you, my current business, everything else is done well, including Zoom. But our English entertainment channels are still sort of not finding favor.
That category is going through tough times. Last question. How are you leveraging synergies between digital and TV with more people working from home? Were there any challenges that you faced?
Absolutely none. I'm proud to say that we are 1,250 people. I don't think more than 15 people, including me here, have basically got affected by this, because we have been the first in this country. We went in, I think, around March 10th or 13th. Fortunately, because I was traveling in the last week of February to Africa and back. And when I crossed Addis Ababa airport, I saw the stringent measures in that airport compared to the Bombay airport at that time. I'm talking of end February. And apparently, Addis Ababa is China's gateway. Africa's gateway for China. Mainly, a lot of Chinese come to Africa via there. And that actually led me to thinking that maybe in a month or so, we will have this problem. But, it happened a lot before that. In fact, actually, it happened in a month. But I came in and I told my team to go in for a sort of, you do those drills. Those are drill fire drill kind of a thing. So we started with the drill. We did not actually go into a lockdown with the lockdown. We actually said we'll do a 1-week drill and work from home, so that we'll know how our systems are able to cope up, all the networks, etc. That's how we started in the second week. After Holi, immediately we started. And, fortunately, unfortunately, we continued. And we've also, in fact, already told our team that I have already announced to them December 31st. And right now on this call, I can announce to them that definitely till March 31st, I do not want anybody to come back. And right now we operate with about 200 people out there, about 50 on the field and 150 in office, and that too, 2 shifts. So 75 people at any point of time at home and 75 people in office. So in reality, 75 plus 50, about 125 people out of 1,250 people are only working from office. Rest of 90% of people are at home, and we are beautifully managing. There was no technology glitch. Initially, that 10 days that we were doing the drill, we were able to do a lot of corrections, whatever required, and we were able to sort of move forward better.
Fantastic. On that note, thank you, MK, for joining us, especially in the current state. I wish you are back at home tomorrow and your family also recovers very soon. Look forward to seeing you in person. And, your recovery is very important for your company as well as the overall industry. I'm thankful that so many people joined us and watched you live. With that, thank you for joining us and have a good evening. I hope to see you for the next webinar. And before I go, let me remind you, there's a series of webinars coming up on Exchange4Media. Tomorrow, we have a webinar on search advertising with our partner InMobi from 4 to 5 p.m. So whoever is interested or wants to know more about search advertising, please join in. Till then, stay safe and MK, recover soon. See you soon.
Thank you, Naval.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for spending your time
Thank
with
you.
me. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.